You know, there are few things in this culture war that are more rewarding than when these self-important, politically obsessed, ideological game journalists have to cope and seethe and admit in an article that we were right. Welcome back to Words of Paradise. I'm your host, Leon Idle, and yes, if you hadn't seen, after Assassin's Creed Shadows delay, Ubisoft acknowledges Outlaws issues, anti-woke pushback, and of course it is written by Paul Tassi, arguably the second most hated of the game journalists ever since the ongoing gamergate issue started, behind only, of course, Alyssa Mercante herself. And yeah, this is a pretty brilliant article. Not brilliant intentionally, but brilliant nonetheless. In fact, we're gonna have kind of two brilliant articles to go over, because Kotaku, of all people, also brought up something brilliant, once again, I think by accident. But before we get into any of that, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I'm a nerdy news channel. I cover nerdy news every day. And yes, let's see what Mr. Tassi is coping and seething about today. Ubisoft is in an extremely rough spot right now, with its stock at a 10-year low, a self-investigation into the company beginning to sort out its issues, and the announcement that its imminent large-scale Assassin's Creed game Shadows will now be delayed 3 months out of 2024 to February 14th, 2025. And for those of you that were curious, specifically to my female viewers, I know I've only got about a 7% female audience, but this message is for you. You are about to have the greatest Valentine's Day of your life in 2025. You want to know why? Because that is the day that this Assassin's Creed game releases, and no self-respecting man and partner is going to buy this game day one when he could be taking his beautiful gal out for chocolates and a date and the movies and a dinner or whatever it may be. So, and on behalf of women everywhere, I would just like to say thank you, Ubisoft. This is probably the most you've actually done for women since your inception as a company. Ubisoft was unusually candid about the reason for this, even to the point of admitting its last game had issues they needed to learn from. While Assassin's Creed Shadows is feature complete, the learnings from the Star Wars Outlaws release led us to provide additional time to further polish the title. Now here's where we're going to switch over to Kotaku. We're going to pump the brakes, we're going to switch over for a moment, because there was a different article by Ethan Gack, and we're not going to go over this whole thing. There's just one particular part of it that ties into what what Paul was saying there for a moment. That is Ubisoft telling on themselves in the most accidental yet beautiful way one could possibly imagine. This is from the article entitled Assassin's Creed Shadows delayed to February because Star Wars Outlaws isn't doing well. And in so, they say, we realize we need more time to polish and refine the experience, pushing further some of our key features. Ubisoft announced through its Assassin's Creed social media account on Wednesday. The company elaborated more in a press release aimed at investors that cited soft sales from Star Wars Outlaws as part of the reason for pushing the game back from its original November 11th launch. While the game is feature complete, the learnings from Star Wars Outlaws release led us to provide additional time to further polish the title. Now, if it needs further polish yet it's feature complete, what does that mean? It means if Star Wars Outlaws did not do so abysmally, they were going to release Shadows as is. In other words, they were going to release it as the same glitchy, buggy mess that every single modern-day AAA game has come out as in the last several years, and then just push a 19-gigabyte day one patch or whatever it is that they would work on. It is actually kind of amazing. Again, I don't think they realize that this is what they're admitting to. This will enable the biggest entry in the franchise to fully deliver on its ambition, not only by fulfilling the promise of our dual protagonist adventure with Naoe and Yasuke bringing two very different gameplay styles, but remember, the game is feature complete, but they learned from Star Wars Outlaws that they needed additional time to polish it. If you the gamers, I push back on gamers a lot of the times. I say that, you basically act like drug addicts. You gotta have it day in, day out, number one under the sun. It's gotta be there, and because of that, you buy these buggy day one messes. But because you guys have been awesome lately, and I say you guys because I very rarely buy day one stuff, but to be fair, I'm part of this as well, so it's not just you. You can criticize your boy as well. I'm just being kind of an asshole here. But yes, because we as gamers have pushed back so much on day one purchases, or even purchasing games in general, especially when it comes to these buggy release messes, Ubisoft is terrified that they will not get all the day one money because, oh no, gamers aren't buying our products. But they full well knew that this game was technically finished, even if it was not optimized in the slightest. And because you've pushed back, because you've not been purchasing these games, they realize, hey, we need to deliver a finished project if we want to make money. Now, don't get me wrong, I still highly doubt it's going to be finished, and I highly doubt it's going to make money, but at least Ubisoft, well, there is no at least. We scared them, boys. That's what matters. Outlaws arrived, back to the Paul Tassi article, by the way. Outlaws arrived with somewhat middling scores, which put it in the bottom half of Ubisoft's major releases over the last 10 to 15 years. The most expensive game Ubisoft has ever released to date in terms of the budget and money it took to create it. In the bottom half, you love to see it. The idea was that the open-world Star Wars game was almost a can't-miss, but between bugs and criticism of its heavy stealth focus, it just didn't do as well as they wanted, and that includes sales-wise. Now, Massive is patching the game not just to fix technical issues, but even to modify some of its stealth sections to be more player-friendly, plus additional improvements to combat more generally. The Ubisoft surprisingly tactically acknowledged a narrative that its games have become too woke or agenda-driven, according to a segment of the internet. Hi? Yeah, that would be us. Here's the dealio. He doesn't want to admit this. If you go and look at his Twitter history, he literally had a tweet. I wish I had thought to save it and pull it up, but that said, why is Ubisoft even acknowledging these anti-woke gamers? They've already made their apology to Japan. You want to know why Ubisoft is acknowledging the anti-woke gamers? Because to quote a bunch of Star Wars nerds on the internet that are obsessed with Disney Star Wars, there are more of us. Yes, we have been able to create flop after flop when it comes to the gaming industry as of late. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League was a flop. Concord was a flop. Dustborn was a flop. And while none of these are exclusively due to the wokeness, of course these games were just bad games. They had a lot of bad optimization. They did not run well. They were not interesting. They were not fun. They were, honestly, lots of carbon copies of other games. The message still got out there. There were still individuals that played these, or didn't play these actually, just saw these and thought, yeah, I'm not buying that. Because even for normies, what's happening in the game industry when it comes to the political side of things can't be ignored anymore, to the point where Ubisoft had to make a statement, and it blew Tassi's mind, because this might be the moment when he's realizing they're the baddies. Yes, those on the side that he championed so hard are the ones actively ruining gaming by continuing to push this ideological divide, when most gamers, it doesn't matter if you're Democrat, Republican, left, right, whatever, just want to play good games without any sort of overhanded political message and go from there. Ubisoft themselves say, I want to reaffirm that we are an entertainment-first company, creating games for the broadest possible audience, and our goal is not to push any specific agenda. We remain committed to creating games that everyone can enjoy. If you remain committed to creating games that everyone can enjoy, why was Star Wars Outlaws? Why is Assassin's Creed Shadows? Why did Skull and Bones, the first quadruple A game of all time, flop inordinately? Just one of the biggest letdowns I think I've ever seen in gaming. It's overshadowed by things like Suicide Squad and Concord because, well, let's be real, there's much more of the political agenda aspect of those games. But let's not forget, Skull and Bones was touted as the very first quadruple A game. And people were saying that the Assassin's Creed Black Flag, which was basically just a tech demo for Skull and Bones, was the better game. I mean, yes, they are an abject failure of a company right now, and it is because you weren't creating games for the broadest possible audience. You were creating games that really only appealed to the most normie and the most ardent leftist of gamers. Normies that don't really care about how well made the game is. They just want something to relax and play at the end of the day, and as long as it's not a buggy mess, they're good. And then ardent leftists by including all the political ideologies and propaganda that you so aptly throw in it. It makes sense. They're a French company, and we all know the EU, that all these countries across Europe are batshit insane when it comes to their leftist ideology. But the fact of the matter is, what you say that everyone can enjoy is actually a minority that you didn't realize you were catering to because you thought it was a majority, because for whatever reason you think that Twitter is real life. Well, Ubisoft already apologized to its Japanese audiences over some questionable promotional materials for Shadows, materials that, if I recall, you defended, Paul. The pushback was also about the inclusion of Yasuke as one of the two leads, a legendary black samurai, and legendary, and that, he sure was legendary, didn't really exist. I mean, yes, he existed, but his importance has very much been played up. There was an ensuing debate of whether he was actually a samurai, and stated the idea that it shouldn't be starring him at all. Now, most individuals stated it shouldn't star him, myself included. Why? Because you've never actually played as historical figures in previous Assassin's Creeds. They've always been side characters, and even then, this is a game that takes place in Japan. It should star Japanese people, not as just a way to shoo in and some agenda that you didn't realize the Japanese themselves would push back on as hard as they did, to the point where you're right. They did need to apologize, but you all know that. That's old news. But hearing Paul Tassi have to admit it, hearing him have to grovel and grit his teeth and say, you know what, these damn anti-wokers were right and now it's costing Ubisoft, well, maybe you should have been listening to us the last half-decade and we wouldn't have gone this far. Because if you don't remember, this is Gamergate 2.0. There was a whole other Gamergate 10 years ago. You had that long to learn from your mistakes. There was a similar pushback to COPES leading Star Wars Outlaws as a woman, and not attractive enough woman at that. No, Paul. Don't be so disingenuous. That wasn't the argument. It wasn't that she wasn't attractive enough. It was that her model, the real-life woman that she is based on, is incredibly attractive, and you could tell they very obviously took that model and downscaled her looks, and they did it to specifically for pushing a political message. And you could say, oh, we don't have the technology for that. To that I would say, look at every single other Japanese game that's able to do it. Now, don't get me wrong, I've got my criticisms of Sega and Capcom and Square Enix and all these other corporations that are falling into the woke Western ESG driven traps, but at least they're still modeling their females to look almost exactly like the actress. What's your excuse? What's Insomniac's excuse for Mary Jane? Don't pretend that it's not that she wasn't attractive enough. It's that we could tell you were intentionally vilifying sexuality, vilifying attractiveness in these female characters. That way they don't get the male gaze. No, historical accuracy complaints there. It was pretty straightforward. Woke DEI talking points there, but it's surprising to see Ubisoft entertain this at all. Ubisoft's stock is the lowest it's been, like you said, in 10 to 15 years. Maybe if they want to make money, they should start listening to the people that are going to buy the games. The customer. This really is that difficult for you to understand. You live in this fantasy world where everyone should just bow and kowtow to your ideological beliefs, even if those ideological beliefs cost the company money. A company that cannot stay afloat financially and therefore will be able to make no games ever again if they go under because they're not pleasing their target demographic. Money doesn't just fall from the sky, and this is not some socialist communist wonderland as much as you probably want it to be, considering you write for Forbes. With the Shadows delay, I've seen some talk about how they're using this time to patch out Yasuke or reduce his role in the game as a result of this. That's not happening. No one has said that's happening. Maybe some fringe individuals on X that don't actually have any sort of prominence or following, but sure, go ahead, use that without citing any sources. No one thinks they're getting rid of Yasuke. That's essentially impossible at this point. There's a 3-month delay for a feature-complete game, and you're not going to tear out the entire meat of the story and replace it during that time. That's just not how it works. It will indeed simply be polished, ensuring the game launches with the best foot forward, and the department has fewer bugs than Outlaws did. I still doubt it will. Again, modern-day AAA games, but I'm open to being wrong. I mean, I'll never find out if I'm wrong. I'm not playing the game, but that's neither here nor there. It's clear Ubisoft is in a tough spot right now, and all hands on deck at this point. Whether they can recover from the recent missteps and launch Shadows as a hit remains to be seen. No, they cannot. We know they can't. Paul knows they can't. You watching this know they can't. But he has to maintain some era of credibility. He can't go all in and say, damn it, those anti-woke gamer chuds were right, despite the fact that, again, we've been saying the same thing very consistently for several years now, and what it must have taken for him to write this article, the amount of pride he must have swallowed like all the cum he swallowed in the last several years, must have been incredibly difficult for him, but I'm glad he did it, and more importantly, I'm so glad that Kotaku was able to accidentally expose Ubisoft as saying, yep, we would have released this game as is if it weren't for the complete pushback of the last broken game we released. Gaming is in such an insane state right now, and frankly, I'm more finding it fun. I'm actually having more fun seeing the chaos and the flames and the fires that is coming from the destruction of gaming than I have been playing any of these modern day games. Because you know what? Resident Evil 3, the original on PS1, will always be there. In fact, it's on sale on GOG right now. The Spyro the Dragon for PS1, it'll always be there. Sonic Adventure on Dreamcast will always be there. Jak and Daxter, Metal Gear Solid, Shadow of the Colossus, the list goes on and on and on. Those beautiful, brilliant masterpieces will always be there. And if we never get another AAA masterpiece again, I honestly wouldn't be upset, because there's years upon years worth of back catalog games we can go to. There's a thriving indie scene that we can go to and continue to purchase games from developers that actually care, that actually have that fiery passion in their stomachs, that want to create the next big thing, that want to be the next Phantasy Star Online or whatever it is that they're trying to create. And don't get me wrong, not all indies are free of politics or DEI or wokeness or anything like that. No, you're still gonna pick and choose, pick your battles, find things that fit you. But the point is, if we can go with the past where things were objectively better, or the future in an indie sense where there's still that love and care for the craft, then what do we really even need AAA for, aside to point and laugh and be honest? Hey, if we're gonna grip, if you want to call us grifters, then we'll be grifters. We will make every single Assassin's Creed Shadows video or Dragon Age Veilguard video or whatever under the sun until we single-handedly destroy the modern gaming zeitgeist, and we laugh while we do it. If you wanted villains, then by all means, you have made us the villains, and I'm loving it. But those are just my opinions. Let me know yours in the comments down below, or let me know on X where you can find me at Bolt the Word. And please do subscribe. I'm a nerdy news channel. I cover nerdy news every day. Not always about what's going on in the video game industry, but anime, movies, music, Magic the Gathering, you name it. Check me out on Instagram at wordsofparadise_Leon and become a member for $4.99 a month. You can join the Discord, choose the articles I go over on a day-to-day basis, choose the videos I react to on my Friday night live streams, and of course, get involved with over 80 other vital idols. We are a bright, beautiful, glowing, vibrant community that I cannot wait to grow even further, because we do care about diversity. But only one kind of diversity of thought. If that's interesting to you, join the Discord, hit subscribe, and until next time, it is all here in the Nerdosphere. This has been Words of Paradise.